And hello, everybody. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. Oh, we're going to have so much fun tonight. You know how Americans like to speak for other people all the time? So there's a lot of people telling us what Canadians are feeling right now and what they're thinking of Trump's proposals and what they're thinking of becoming the 51st state. But how many Canadians are you actually speaking to? So tonight, you're going to get the opportunity to talk to a Canadian, Jordan McGregor. Saw him online, smart man, former cop, real estate broker, also an entrepreneur. And then he also happens to do a podcast. And I was listening to some of his stuff and I thought, this guy's really good. And he's really getting the message out there of what he wants to talk about. I don't know where he stands politically. I don't really give a shit. And he probably doesn't care where I go, what I do. But I think we can have a really good conversation and find out. And you guys feel free to comment on here if you have questions or statements. Be nice to our neighbors to the north, but you can ask questions and stuff and we can get some answers here. But I just want to find out more about what they're thinking. And, we're there's just a few places away. So let me get my sponsor in here real quick. My sponsor is Chris Dental Family Dentistry. Dr. Bratland would absolutely love this because he loves people talking. He's big on freedom of speech. And he wants people having conversations rather than screaming at each other. So this is a perfect show for him to sponsor. So let's thank Dr. Michael Bratland. All right, let's bring Jordan on. Hey, Jordan, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome. It's nice to have a brother in the North. You know, I was showing your picture to a friend of mine. Somebody goes, "You could be his older brother," and I'm like, wait. How come you had to put the older part in there? Why can't I just be Jordan's brother and I don't have to be his older brother? And I'm oh, geez.
It's funny. I feel like my hair is not on point compared to yours, though. I'll tell you that much. I was when I saw your message come, I'm like, fuck, man, this guy has a nice set of hair. It is. I'm telling you, it's a fleeting thing. So it's an inside joke with me and a few of my buddies. We always like to comment on men who have nice hair, and I got to tell you, it's flowing, my friend. It looks good.
Yeah, well, I do these TikTok lives once in a while, and usually once a week or something. And there's a joke where people used to take shots every time somebody would come on and say something about my hair or my beard. It was like, we're sick of it, Rick. Take it. So they'd all do a shot. Oh, everybody's got to take a shot. Somebody mentioned Rick's hair.
Tracy just does that. Oh, you two do look similar. It is funny. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we're related somewhere down the line.
Yeah. I honestly, when I saw you, I thought, God, that's one of the first people I ever saw that I thought kind of did resemble me like that. You know, I mean, I could tell you, I could get you my barber, Jordan, and we can do the whole thing. So,
go on, yeah.
So tell people a little bit about who you are before we start our conversation, and you live and where you live and that kind of thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm from a small town in Canada, just north of the border. Maybe, I don't know, 40 minutes to Watertown. I'm 44 years old. I have a background in law enforcement and real estate. I've kind of kept my my opinions to myself, especially in my professional capacity. You always want to be careful, especially when you're dealing with the public. And I do a lot of commercial real estate, and I work with a lot of corporations and companies. And so, if I've learned one thing, it's to keep my mouth shut. And just with what's been happening recently, I've had a hard time doing that. And I know, because I was going to say, I looked on your page, and you do not keep your mouth shut. Well, it's the last couple of years. I couldn't help myself. I was looking around and I could see what was going on, and it was infuriating. And finally, I just let loose, and it's kind of started on Instagram and it transitioned to TikTok. And I'll tell you, TikTok was where I kind of found my true calling, and it kind of took off from there. I guess if you had to ask me where I lean politically, I'll tell you, for Canadians are very liberal.
Are you?
And that wouldn't, no, I was. So, I remember my childhood. We were always a very liberal household. We always voted liberal, but liberal 30 years ago is different from what liberal is today. Liberal 30 years ago was very center when it came to Canadian politics. What we have today is a realignment of those dynamics. And liberal today is far left. As a matter of fact, the liberal government we have in power today is even more far left than our NDP party, which is far left. It's really fascinating what's been taking place over the last decade in Canadian politics, and that has pulled the far right over to center. And so, while I would identify as a conservative now, I'm the values that I hold are typically relatively normal, standard liberal ideals from 30 years ago. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, the same things happened in America because I remember, I worked most of my career in Eugene, Oregon, which is known as a hippie liberal haven. And when I first went there, though, a liberal was somebody. Honestly, they drove a shitty Volvo with bumper stickers that said, "Kill your television. Don't trust big pharma. Don't trust the government." All that kind of stuff. And now those bumper stickers are on the Republican cars, and the Democrats have all the opposite. So it's like, I think they went so far right and left, both of them. They went like this, and then they went boom, and just swapped.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, that the same thing's happening here. It's really it's interesting. It's scary too, to be honest. There's a lot of things happening right now in Canadian politics. I mean, and it's funny because I would see. I love watching you guys. American politics. I will tell you, there's never a dull moment. And
well, especially right now. Good night. Every day, Donald Trump is doing something, and I feel like he's almost like a puppet master, and he's going, "Oh, let's see how we can antagonize them today." I think he has a method, and he's doing what he feels like he needs to do. But I think he also is having a little bit of fun with this whole thing because people are so freaked out. That's not even a fair statement. The far left liberals are so freaked out. And I think then you got this other group of people who are really not just, if you voted for Donald Trump, then they call you a MAGA and any other name that they want. But there's a ton of people that I know that are Democrats. And really, I was a non-affiliated voter for most of my career. I mean, because and then I ran for Secretary of State in Oregon in 2008. So I had to become a Republican because we basically have two major parties. How many do you guys have?
Great question. It's a little bit different in Canada. So we have our two powerhouse parties would be similar to you. You have your Democrats and Republicans. We have our liberals and our conservatives, but we also have the NDP, the New Democratic Party. And then we do have a couple of smaller parties. We have the PPC in Quebec, which is far right. We have the Green Party, and there's a couple other smaller independents. And so, I mean, in Canada, you can run as an independent, and if you can generate enough interest and you can find people in your ridings to represent you, you can win seats in the House. So it's a lot more difficult in the United States to run as an independent. They've made it that way for a reason. So in Canada, we do have one of the best parliamentary systems the best governmental systems in the entire world. But like anything, they're not perfect.
Right.
So yeah, just a little bit different in Canada, a little bit easier to operate. You offer under the, I think you operate under the presidential system, and we're under the parliamentary system, which are two different things.
Well, yeah, and for like the state I came from was Oregon, over on the coast, and they started a motor voter registration plan. So what that meant was when you went in to register for your driver's license, they signed you up to vote, whether you wanted to or not. And so what they ended up doing was watering down both the parties, because now in Oregon, the largest party is the non-affiliated voter, and even bigger than the Democrats and bigger than the Republicans. And if those people would get together and actually gave a shit and did something, they could take over the state. But because they just forced them to really register to vote, they're not active people. You know what I mean? They don't really do much. Yeah. So what I know what you said, because I went back and looked at your videos. But when you guys heard Trump mention that you guys, what if we made Canada the 51st state? What went through your mind and the minds of other folks that you know in Canada?
Well, truthfully, when I first heard it, and I did a video about this, and people were calling me a traitor. I love the idea of it, to be honest. I love the United States. I love Americans. I love how they operate. I mean, there are certain things, obviously, that you don't necessarily love, but I mean, I think in general, it's you're just a fascinating group of people. We are, and this is the funny part, Rick, is when you look at Canadians, Americans, we're the same damn people. We really are. I mean,
Right.
we go back to the 1500s when North America was being colonized. The French took up north, which is now Quebec. We had, you know, a lot of the British going into, which are the colonies now, which became the United States. And then we had the fight between and then the British came in, and the British fought the French, and that's kind of what happened. And then when that war was over, Britain took over, and your loyalists in America wanted to stay separate, and so the 13 states, you know, became the United States. And I'm doing it a disservice here, but I mean, we're the same damn people. Like, we are literally the only thing that separates us is a couple hundred years. That's it, really. When you look at it, so for me, it just makes sense. You're our biggest trading partner. Why would we not become part of you? I mean, it just.
So what do your friends and other people say? So, you know what I mean? What do they think? I mean, obviously there's tons.
I'll tell you, Rick, this is the funny part. When I posted one of the videos about Donald Trump threatening to take over Canada by force, and I will tell you, the overwhelming majority, and I don't block my comments. I love people to troll. I just hit me with everything you have. The overwhelming majority love the idea. They just wanted to know the fine details. How would it work? That was the part that confused people, because we are more of a socialist country than you are, and so we have things like our healthcare and our education. That's what people were most concerned about, was healthcare. But what are we going to do about healthcare? And you actually have better healthcare than we do. Ours might be free, but it takes you, like, my son's been waiting for an MRI for 4 fucking years. 4 years. Wow. Yes. But it's like, so yes, we have free healthcare, but I mean, Jesus, I mean, people die in Canada because they can't get access to the services they need, or it takes too long. I mean, not all the time. I mean, again, there are a lot of positives about it too, and depending on where you are in the country. But, you know, a lot of people love the idea. Said, shit, I mean, if we could become a part of America, how would that work? How would it look? I mean, from an economic perspective, it would be incredible. I mean, it would be like the stars aligning, I think, for both countries, especially when you had access to our resources and how they would be harnessed. We don't refine a lot of our raw materials because we're terrible at it. Truthfully, we let you guys do it, then you sell it back at us for a premium. But if we opened up our borders and allowed you to have access to our resources and more efficient ways of production and distribution, I mean, Jesus, we would be the richest continent in the entire world by far. It would be incredible. And that's what people like about it.
Now, I hear people here saying that, you know, especially conservatives, I don't want Canada because they're really liberal. And if we had a 51st state, they're going to get 2 senators. They're going to probably, you know, that swings the balance. Then I heard somebody say, well, maybe if they took the more rural areas and made 2 states out of Canada, then you'd have Quebec and some of the more liberal places, I'm guessing, right? And then some of the more rural places, you could have the other states, so you could, you know, balance it out a little bit.
This is the issue, is that the way our parliamentary system works, the way our ridings are broken up. Listen, it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or the US. When you have major metropolitan areas, you're typically Democratic or liberal. That is a fact. It doesn't matter if you're in Texas or where you are. Just when you get into more of an urban setting, they go to the left. So the way it works in Canada, though, is when we have some of our big metropolitan, like you look at Ontario, Toronto, you look at some of the bigger centers, because they're a massive metropolitan area, they're typically left leaning, and when they win more seats, and that's what it throws off the balance of power. It's disproportionate compared to other parts of the country. It's all done based on population size. And so you're 100% right. When you look at Canada, we are relatively left leaning, but if you separated the provinces into states, maybe you took the West Coast, became a state, your prairie provinces became a state, Ontario became a state, I think Quebec would just go and do their own thing, to be brutally honest. They are a strange bunch of people. I'm French. My mom was French, but I will tell you, the Quebecois are a different breed. They are a pain in the ass, to be honest. And I apologize if I've upset any French people on here. And then you have...
Well, my grandmother was Quebec. No, I'm kidding. Matt Smith says 28 days for Trump to make a deal with Alberta.
Yeah, interesting. So, and this is a bone of contention right now, because Premier Smith in Alberta has been having conversations with Trump. And according to our fearless leader, Justin Trudeau, she's thrown Canada under the bus. So what had happened is all of the premiers across, so like our governors, all of our premiers across Canada had come together to unite, and in their infinite wisdom, these idiots didn't know what they were going to do. And so they were coming up with stupid things like Doug Ford. So he's a conservative premier, and he's actually a liberal posing as a conservative, but his brilliant idea was to say, we're not going to take any more booze from America. It's like, really? Like, we account for 13% of your exporting. It's not going to hurt the United States. He just killed a deal. He just killed a deal with Elon Musk for Starlink. So we have our landmass is the second largest landmass in the world.
Yeah.
90% of our population live along the border, but we have a massive amount of land going north. And we have a lot of communities out there which don't have good access to technology, communication, internet. And so he killed a deal with Elon Musk, which is crazy because we've been trying to work with a Canadian company who we've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars on, and no homes have been provided with anything, where we could have went right to Elon Musk and we could fix the problem instantly. But this is the stupidity of how our government works. So all our premiers were getting together, thinking of ways and how they were going to try and stick it to the United States. And nobody looked at it for what it really was. It's just Donald Trump, grandstanding. He's on his soapbox. He's doing his thing. He's doing this intentionally because he wants the world to know that if he's willing to do this to his closest neighbors, everybody is fair game. He's coming for everybody. And so it's causing turmoil all over the world. But I'll tell you, it's working. You look at Panama and Rubio, they just killed the deal with China. And so Panama's not going to renew that deal anymore. And so, it's fascinating what he's doing. He's rocking the boat. USAID. I just saw that 2 days ago.
Did you see that? Down. Yeah. But did you see the money?
Billions. Your money is coming into Canada and it's being funded. It's being funded into all of our educational institutions, our universities, billions and billions of dollars to spread that left-leaning ideology. It's unbelievable what they're discovering right now. So I have a hard time looking at any American who says, man, this guy is a menace. Yeah, you know what? He can be a bit much sometimes. If he just didn't talk as much, I think he would go a lot further. But what they're uncovering, you can't argue to Elon Musk's brilliance. They're using incredibly advanced AI algorithms right now to peel through all of this data, and they are finding things that are blowing people's minds right now.
Doesn't that? I think today I'm just shocked. 5,000 FBI agents working on this January 6th fiasco. Then you've got money, millions of dollars being sent on trans shit to Somalia and other places, and for education programs. And you're going, what? It's unbelievable. New York Times was getting millions. The Politico, which is a far left news, online, and they were getting thousands and thousands of dollars from taxpayers. And I think Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley are two Oregon senators who are making the biggest stink about this. And I think all these people are doing this because they know that they're going to all get exposed, that where this money is going, the American people are freaking out because Donald Trump and Elon Musk are finding, things that we're going. It's almost like your kid, you find out, you go, you spent your college money on what?
Yes.
And I think that's where people are flipping out. But on the left, it's like, I'm so shocked at the number of people I know who aren't even checking this out. They just are going, they're listening to the headlines of Elon's ruining our country. And why does he even have anything to say? Well, or why are people in government so afraid for him to go in and look at their records? That's the question you need to be asking. Yeah.
It's all deflection right now. It's really, and you look at Elon Musk, he's the richest man in the world. Yeah. And he gave his technology, his patents away to the world for the Tesla motors. Like, he's not in it for the money. The guy wants to change the world. He really does. Right. I think.
And he's doing this. I don't think he's getting paid to, he's obviously paying his people, but he's going in there and doing all this stuff. And they're sleeping, we can't even get federal workers to go to work from home. And he's got people sleeping in the federal offices where this stuff is happening and looking all night to find this stuff. And I think, and then, people on the left say, "Oh, and why are you so excited about this?" Because finally someone is listening and doing something that cares about what we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Trump says things sometimes, but he's gotten a lot better. Before he won, like the last 3 months, I would be like, I would get to a point where I'd go, quit talking about you. Talk about we, the people.
I don't know if that's changed. I mean, he just said, what was it yesterday? He said that they're gonna take over the Gaza Strip and they're gonna develop it. I mean, he just says whatever he wants, and I think this is what I mean, especially Canadians too, because we worry a lot. It's not.
Oh, are you guys? Maybe that's from your English ties, because aren't the English like really the in the UK? Isn't it really? I always hear podcasters say, "Oh, people that are always really, really worriers and negative about stuff and that kind of thing."
Yeah, I don't know if it has something to do with the education system, but so when Donald Trump, and the other thing you have to understand too, Rick, is we're so dependent on the United States. Like, I think people don't understand that 75% of our export goes to you, 90% of our oil goes to you. And so at the end of the day, if something were to happen, it would be an economic disaster for Canada, and it's so for a lot, and we're also a highly educated country too. So understand this. And so, and I think this is what rubs people the wrong way sometimes, because Donald Trump, he will say some things that are just inaccurate. So I think for a lot of Canadians, we get our backs up, and he'll say things like, there's a trade. What does he say? It's a trade between Canada and the US. I'm having a seniors moment here.
Is it a deficit?
No, it's not it is a trade deficit, but he was calling it a subsidy, a trade subsidy.
Oh,
okay. Like, no, it's a trade deficit because you're 10 times the fucking size we are. And so you just bring in more product than we bring in from you. Your population's 10 times the size. So it's not a subsidy to deficit.
So you guys hear it, and it can, because I remember you were talking. Yeah. And I've heard other people online saying, we just don't know what he's doing. But we're the same in America. I think the base of people that elected him are just so 100% behind him. He doesn't care anymore. I mean, he's just going. And you as a real estate guy,
going the way he's going, though, if he just keeps going the way he's going, he needs to make some really good decisions early on in this, or he will lose. In my opinion, he's going to lose the faith in the people. So as long as he keeps uncovering things that are going to be revolutionary and mind-blowing, he's going to be fine. But I think he needs to kind of come back in, because it's getting to Mexico is the same as us. Mexico relies heavily on you guys, on the United States, and you really, at the end of the day, you do need us. You do need our crude oil. I'm telling you right now, you need it. You just don't have enough of it. And and when it comes to the military, Trump's 100% correct in that. We've been slacking because you are our border. At the end of the day, why are we going to spend needlessly? And so what's happened is, and this is conservative and liberal government alike. It's not just the liberals. The liberals, believe it or not, Rick, have increased their spending on military by about 35% over the last 10 years. More than the conservatives. Yes, more than the conservatives. But it's a matter of where those funds are going. A lot like you, funds are being misappropriated. They're not being used for the right things. And so I think, for Canadians, these are the things that scare us, because if something happened between the two of us and we got hit with tariffs, it would be an economic disaster for Canadians. I mean, and we're already in a bad spot. The average Canadian, our debt to income levels, $1.80 in debt for every dollar we bring in. You guys are on par. You guys are a dollar debt for every dollar you bring in. So when you look at from a leveraged perspective, Canadians are not in a good spot. And when you add to the fact that 1 in 3 Canadian families right now, and this is shocking, 1 in 3 Canadian families are going hungry. 1 in 3. As a matter of fact, a number of cities across Canada have declared states of emergency because they cannot get healthy food to families. This is what's happened over the last 10 years.
Is that Justin Trudeau and his policies?
Yes and no. I mean, he's not the only one to blame, but he is a big part of it. At the end of the day, people, in my opinion, they get they get used to a certain kind of quality of life. They become complacent. They don't want to work anymore. You will not find, Rick, a white person working at Tim Hortons in Canada. It is above them. And so what happens is it causes issues with employment we look to bring in cheaper labor. And much like you in the open borders, the Democrats did this under Biden and Harris. They left those borders open for you to bring in cheap labor. The corporations loved it. The lobbyists loved it because it was cheap labor to run their businesses. That's really in truth. And it was they had multiple benefits. You had that cheap labor coming across the border. You give them money and a potential citizenship, and you now have a Democratic voter for life. And you move those into the swing states, and away you go. And so we're doing the same things here. We're bringing in people by the millions. Last year, there was one person every 35 seconds coming into the country here. We had 1.1 million people a year coming in on temporary visas, and they just weren't leaving. So, this is kind of what scares people. It's like the policies, Justin Trudeau, I think his heart is in the right place, but you got to remember, he's also a champagne socialist too. He comes from wealth, and I'm not just talking a little bit of wealth. I'm talking a significant amount of wealth. Although he only declared a $1.3 million net worth when he started his political career in 2013, he was worth 10 times that. And that has now turned into 10 times. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
So you say he lied? A politician lied?
Good question. It's a matter of where the money was. If it was his personal net worth, or if it was in a trust and he hadn't received it. I mean, again, I'm not his financial advisor, so I can't speak to that. But this was CBC announced. It's online, $1.3 million net worth. It's all bullshit. But so this is the problem, that we have a man like this who has no political acumen, who is now running a country, and he runs it like a dictator. This is true. He does. He runs it like a dictator. What he says goes. And if you don't do what he wants, you're gone. And whether that's him or his handlers, I don't know. But at the end of the day, he's the one that appointed our immigration minister. He appointed our housing minister. He appointed our minister of finance, the three most important positions in government, and none of them had any experience in that position. And it was a fucking disaster.
Oh, well, we had one of those in charge of our air traffic controllers, and that's become a real problem for us. Yeah. So Trudeau's out, though. He's leaving, right?
So, yes. But this is it becomes complicated here. Do you know the name?
That's why we have you. That's why we have you.
Do you know the name Mark Carney?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Mark Carney was listening to some today.
Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of Canada between 2008 and 2013. After his tenure as the governor of the Bank of Canada, he went to become the governor of England. Okay. While he was here, he was brought in by Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And it was over the looming threats of what was happening to you guys in 2008 with the recession, the housing bubble burst. Carney came in, lowered interest rates. It's called quantitative easing, and then made sure that we had liquidity on hand in case we needed it. And so that's what any good governor of the Bank of anywhere would do. I mean, it's just common sense, right? During his tenure, home prices went up by 34% over 5 years. This is a fact. Debt to income ratios went up 25%. This is a fact. This is what happens when you drive down interest rates, you drive up price. Then they start printing money, inflation, money loses its value, things become more expensive. So Canada, and we also have much tighter banking regulations in Canada than you do in the United States. This is a fact as well. This is why we sailed right through 2008 and we were unscathed. So Carney then went to England, did the same thing in England. In 2000, while this is happening, and when he's in England, 2018, he's consulting with our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney was the advisor to Justin Trudeau, both officially and unofficially. Okay. So he was helping dictate our economic policy and our energy policies, our environmental policies. This is what he did. But the funny part with Trudeau is he's been pushing net zero and green energy since 2017. Really big pushes.
Yeah.
As Carney was coming out of his tenure at the Bank of England, he went to work for Brookfield Asset Management, where he was being paid millions of dollars, and he was managing their transitions fund, which you probably guessed it, dealt with alternative energy sources, green energy. Okay, so it's kind of funny. You're leaving the Bank of England. You're now you're providing consultation to the Prime Minister of Canada. You're dictating new policy. Canada killed $200 billion worth of LNG infrastructure. So natural gas and oil refineries, killed them instantly, done. And now we've adopted this big green push. Kind of coincidental. Again, maybe I'm conspiracy, but when you look at it, it just doesn't make sense. And so Trudeau's gone. Carney has now come in. He's resigned from all of his positions across all of his boards, which there were many. And he's now running to be the new leader of the Liberal Party. Now, I will tell you, Carney's a smart man. He's no dummy, but this is what makes him really dangerous. He is considerably smarter than Justin Trudeau, and he has the connections. Carney also is incentivized to push the environmental policies he helped build. He was the architect of. You got to remember, he personally took in $15 billion while at Brookfield of money to go into these transition funds. If you're giving money, you're going to want to make sure that they're successful, whether you're there or not. So again, at the end of the day, what Mark Carney's doing is really interesting. He's pretending to be a conservative right now. He's on the news and TV saying, outright outing Justin Trudeau, saying he let his attention slip from the economy. We've gone too far to the left. We need to come back to the center. We have a carbon tax here, and it's in April. It's going up to 61 cents a liter. So
how does that work? How does that work?
So for every liter of product you use, which is petroleum based, oil, gas, natural gas, whatever, you're paying 61 cents a liter on top of whatever the cost is. So if your cost is $1 a liter, you're $1.61 a liter, and then you're $1.61 a liter plus all of your federal and provincial taxes.
And that money is to go to be
it's supposed to go back to the people, but we don't really know where it goes. And this is a huge bone of contention right now.
The people pay it, and then it's supposed to come back to, because when government's involved, I notice that always happens. And then it ends up in Somalia and is transgender.
No. This isn't going to. So what is happening is we also have it's called a green monetary fund. We call it the green slush fund, where a lot of money is supposed to move into for us to push infrastructure and business ideas that are backing green energy. But the funny thing is these billions and billions of dollars are going into the pockets of the MPs and their businesses. I mean, there's been a number of instances where members of parliament have been outed for funds going into businesses which they may be on the board of directors of. And so how does that, if it's a huge conflict, you guys have it happen in the States too. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi.
God.
She outtrades Warren Buffett. How the fuck is that possible? It's because she's a teaser.
But nobody questioned, nobody on her team questions it or says anything about it. And that's what I think is so weird that's going on right now. And that's what I think why so many people in America are so excited that you finally got somebody in there going, you fucked me over. You've taken me to court how many times? You've the Russian collude, all the bullshit and the felonies. And, we still have people here calling him a rapist when it's like, can you show me the conviction? And they go, well, he did it. Well, okay. So you know what?
Well, he is technically a convict, even though he had a conditional pardon. He's still technically a felon, but I mean, that was all his real estate.
Right. That's a misdemeanor buffed up to be a felony, but it's interesting. So now how long does Carney then serve? Does he serving out Trudeau's term?
Great question. So the way our parliamentary system works here is the leader of the country is appointed by the Governor General. And so what will happen is the leader of the country currently is Justin Trudeau. He is resigning. He's prorogued Parliament. So it's like shutting down Congress. We prorogued Parliament. Business can't actually happen, which is a huge problem right now because how are we dealing with you guys? This is why Canadians are really mad as well. So we've prorogued Parliament so the Liberals can run a campaign to determine who their next leader is going to be. And so what all these Liberals put their name in the hat, they all go and do their speeches and their debates, and then a winner will be elected, but you have to be a voting Liberal registered member. You will then elect the new leader of the Liberal Party, who will then, by virtue of that, become the next Prime Minister of Canada until the next election. So,
and when's the next election?
It's supposed to be in October, but every Canadian wants an election now. We just can't get an election because we have no sitting government right now, which is a big problem. And it's different. So for you guys, you have to wait the term unless a president is impeached and gets thrown out of office. For us, we can call an election at any time if we get what's called a vote of non-confidence. And that is when more than 50% of the members of the House of Commons vote in favor of not supporting the current government, or they say that they no longer have faith in the current government. And so what the shitty part about our parliamentary system is that, remember we talked about all those little parties? You have the Liberals, the Conservatives, the far left Liberals, you have the Green Party, the ultra right in Quebec. The issue is they can form what's called a coalition. And so this is what's been happening to Canada for the last 9 years, is that the Liberals, because they didn't have a majority in the last 2 elections, they would partner with the NDP and make promises. We're going to give you dental care. We're going to give you increases on your medication. We're going to give you whatever we're going to give you. And then therefore, every time another party would put forward a vote of non-confidence for voting, the Liberals and the NDP would all vote in favor of the Liberals staying in power, and we wouldn't get enough votes. And so that is the shitty part about our system, is that you can form these shitty coalitions and you can hang on to power. And that's what Trudeau's been doing. He's been hanging on to power. And Trudeau is only one. We have the leader of our NDP is Jagmeet Singh. He's a real dirtbag, this guy. He is just he is a very wealthy man who pretends to be poor. He's really thrown Canadians under the bus.
What does he drive, a Gremlin or something? Or
yeah, I think he drives a Maserati, actually. And he's
he's one of those poor. Yeah,
it's not my car. It's probably his wife's car. So anyway, he's a real dirtbag. But this is the problem in our governmental system, right? And the other issue too is 65% or 70% of Canadians, we get our news, if you can believe it.
You get your news
from social media. And so what's happened is, I think it's Bill C-63. I'll have to confirm, but the Liberal government passed a bill prohibiting social media sites from conveying news unless the medium, so Facebook or Google or whoever, would pay journalists in Canada. It was really strange. So they wanted to be paid for their content, which is funny because all you need to do is put a paywall on it, right? So if you're Epoch Times or New York Times or the Toronto Star or whoever, you can just put a paywall on any news article and all you're going to see is a title. As a matter of fact, it's actually good for business to be able to share news articles. And so what happened is we've been unable to get our news, and a lot of people don't read the paper. We're lazy. We're creatures of convenience. For me, it's easy to go on social media, but now it's becomes harder to fact check. It becomes harder to know what's really going on, is because our media is heavily regulated and controlled here.
Well, here's a question I have for you too. So right now, the thing that the Liberal people are hanging on is all of a sudden they're coming out, and I don't know if you know this, but you may know more than I do, is that Matt just made a comment. Rick, you have better hair than me, and my whole brain was just went dry there. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate your help. It's when I'm 65, it doesn't help me when I get comments like that. But they're coming on and saying Canada already had a deal with Biden, and Trump's just taking credit for it. And they say the same thing about Mexico. And I've been looking this up, and I can't find it anywhere. And
I don't know what deal they're referring to. I mean, we have a number of trade agreements with the United States.
They're talking about the latest deal Trump has to put troops on and to protect the border and work with you, and the tariff kind of battle that he's put up. And yeah, that's the thing, is all I get is little memes drawn up and people saying this, but it's Liberals saying he already had deals with both of them, and Trump's just taking credit for it. And I Google it, I can't find it, but I wondered, as you being a Canadian, if you'd heard anything about that.
I'm not aware of it, and I'm not saying that it's not true, but at the end of the day, lots of conversations take place across border between governments. And at the end of the day, you look at what's going on in Palestine and Israel, and Biden legitimately had brokered a deal or had a deal on the table, but each side wasn't accepting it. And then Trump sent in allegedly one of his guys a week before the election, and they ironed it out. The Hamas was on TV and they said, listen, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, this deal never would have gotten done. Is that factual? I don't know. I think it was BBC News or something, and they were interviewing one of the Hamas leaders, and they said, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, this never would have gotten done. So at the end of the day, something could be spoken about between other leaders, but who's the one to actually get it done? I don't know. This could be one of those situations. This is the first I'm hearing of it related to the border, but it very well could be true. Perhaps there was a deal that was being brokered, but I haven't heard of it.
So if you think if there was a vote today in Canada to become the 51st state or the 51st and 52nd, what do you think people would do?
Really good question. I think we would be pretty divided, to be honest. I think there were Canadians, while we claim to be, that we claim to be very patriotic. I'm not sure I agree with that. And I say that because during COVID, we, based on what the media was telling us, it was like Nazi Germany. It's like, oh, there's a Jew in the basement. There's a Jew. It's like, that's what happened here. As a matter of fact,
here too.
My family, we got sick. We got sick very early on, and we had a little dog. Everything got shut down, and my kids were out walking the dog down the middle of the road. And the next day, we got multiple phone calls from the health department threatening to fine us. And it's like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, oh, well, we had multiple reports from your neighbors. And it's like, it was so disheartening. It's like, I'm your neighbor.
Jordan, that happened here too. We had in Eugene, Oregon, you had people calling the police when they saw too many cars at a house next door.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it became okay to do that. Like, to them, like, it was like, the virtue is worth, and then for people like me who didn't do any of it, then it became, and that's probably, I was on the news for 30 years, and my reputation now for those people is what a horrible person I was. I didn't care about other people and all that. And, and I think I get where Donald Trump is with that. You get to a point where you just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And, because you can only listen to so much of it. And I think it's the same reason you do the podcast that you're doing, is why I do what I do too, is because I think there's so many people out there that want to get information and want to know what's going on, but they don't trust the brokers of the information.
Yeah.
They're
not dealing fair. God,
I was in the news business, and I could see the bias when I worked there, but compared to this, it's like, they're just like public relations firms for the Democratic Party. And it's like, and why that's bad is because, for many reasons, but the other one, it's kind of like the medical community in America is they did more damage during that dark time because there's people like me. I will go to my doctor, but I will never trust everything they say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I like my doctor, but when he gives me the list of all the, what's that I need to get, we can't say the actual thing because YouTube will pull this if I say the V word or anything like that.
Oh,
but
really?
3 weeks ago, I was just on a rant.
Well, I'm glad you told me that.
Remember those things like this that they had us do during that time? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said that this didn't work. And they pulled me and gave me a strike and pulled me off the air for 7 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, geez, I'm glad you told me that, because I was about to go into a whole other rant. But
all you have to do is come up with another word for it. I call it the dark time, or these things or something like that. But they trigger the little fact checkers, and Facebook used to do the same thing. And
which they don't now, which is remarkable, which is very interesting, actually. Yeah.
It's amazing because my numbers have gone up by millions because they're not throttling my content. So it wasn't a fair game. It wasn't on meritocracy, what you could do. It was based on whether you had the right political beliefs. And then you would tell your left-leaning friends how frustrating this is to have a business and do this. And they'd go, oh, that's not true. They're not doing that. And it's like, no, they're not doing it to you, because you have the message of the hour that everybody's buying into. And that now they're on the opposite end of that spectrum, and they're getting really angry right now. Are you seeing people in Canada? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, so yes, but I just saw Dwayne he said, I don't trust doctors nor any government officials. And that's the sad part. And I wanted to touch on that point too, is that's unfortunately, we've been so indoctrinated to believe a certain thing, but not only through our educational system. Like, you look at what we were talking about, USAID funneling billions of dollars into Canadian educational institutions, and you look at what our doctors are supposed to be doing for us. They're supposed to be making us healthy. And you, the Americans have it much worse than we do in Canada. The food paradigm in America is just, I mean, you're poisoning your people, and you're getting rich off of the coming up with some type of a solution to the problem, or not a solution, but a temporary reprieve from the symptom. And it's insane. And like my wife actually has my wife is a nurse practitioner, so just below a doctor, can do all the same things. And she has her own private clinic in Canada, in Kingston, where we live. She works all over on Canada, and she does longevity, hormone replacement therapy, and rejuvenation. And it's remarkable what she's finding in the blood. And so everybody comes in, they do these blood tests. You can do it from anywhere. She's looking at getting her license in New York State as well. And what she's uncovering is shocking. I mean, you're looking at some men are coming in their 20s and they have the hormone levels, like a hormone profile of a 90-year-old man.
Yeah, I have friends in their 30s.
Plastics in people's bodies. And it's like, these are endocrine disruptors. It's insane what we've done to ourselves.
That's interesting. I have a new client, and she's going to start coming on and talking about this stuff. But all the blood work and what they can tell from your blood work, and what people are, do the parasites and the stuff that are coming into your body, and to cleanse that out. And I mean, it's absolutely
there are
amazing.
A lot of scams too, though. There are a lot of people selling you the parasites, and take this and put your feet in this water.
The mushroom.
There are a lot of bogus things, but there always is some truth to whatever it is that's going on right now. So that is.
Yeah. I'm waiting. I don't know how you guys are thinking. In our country, I want to really see. I mean, I love Gabby. I think she's great. I hope she gets in there. But RFK, I think if the Senate does not approve him, you are going to see protests, people screaming. People like me are going to be, because I think he's like, for America, I don't agree with everything he says, but he's got the right idea to make us healthy again, to go in and stir it up. And he's got that law degree, and his position on climate change, I don't agree with either, but I like the guy because I think he's smart, and he really does understand, what he's up against, both politically, because he's been, I do find it funny in our country that here you've got, and Dr. I can't say his last name, Barachake. He was a guy from Stanford who was really outspoken about the COVID. And he came out early. I had him on my show, like in 2020. And he was saying everything, and they just obliterated him. Well, now Trump's made him the head of the NIH. It's like, with the Trump administration, if you get fucked over by the culture and the media screws you to death, you've got a place in Washington. And I like that about him. You know?
It's funny that you mentioned RFK. I'm a little worried, though. I was watching when he was before the Senate Finance Committee, I believe. Was it the Senate Finance Committee? I think it was the Senate Finance Committee, and they were raking him over. Everyone was raking him over the coals, and it really, you really have to ask yourself. And I can't remember the one lady's name. I should know it, but she was like, "Will you promise not to, for 4 years after you leave, not to sue any pharmaceutical companies?" And he looked at her and he's like, "Well, why the fuck would I do that? Like,
right?
No, I can't." She's like, "Why won't you do that? Why won't it?" It was shocking to me. And I mean, it's blatantly obvious.
That's one of our lawmakers named Pocahontas by Donald Trump. It's Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren.
She's a beast, but he calls her Pocahontas because she, on all of it, they went back in her college years and she lied about being Native American on all of her stuff, and nobody did anything about it.
Oh, that happened here actually. Randy, I can't remember his last name, but he was outed. He became a member of Parliament, and I believe he had a minister position, and it turned out he was lying about his heritage. He said he was Native, and then he was taking money and funneling it into his own businesses through that green slush fund, and he was outed saying he made that up. He made that. Well, and you know what? It's Rick. I literally just got an email. So I subscribe to the Liberal News, and I literally just got an email. So let me read this to you because I thought this was really interesting.
You guys, this is fresh off the press, right off the press. And I want to thank real quick Colleen Starr. She got me the name for Tulsi Gabbard, and which I was said wrong, and Dr. Bhattacharya. She got them both in there. So Colleen, you're hired. Thank you so much for being my fill-in. I'm 65. I need all the help I can get out there. Oh, and did you see how many of the people, the senators that were asking the hard questions and really just trampling on RFK, that how much money they all got from Big Pharma? I mean,
yeah, well, it was Bernie Sanders was number one.
Yeah.
But that was one issue too with RFK, and I was going off about RFK is he makes a lot of good points. The problem is he's put his foot in his mouth so many times with saying things that he's had to walk back because it's put him in a really compromising position, and it's just not true. And so it's like, I love the guy. I think he had my vote for if I was American, I would have voted for him to be president, but he puts himself in a bit of a precarious position at times. And I think he needs to think a little, and I think running for president was never on his, was never in his purview. And I think he was saying these things for shock value, and he probably, I think, regrets some of that. Yeah, here it is. So I just got an email yesterday. Hi, Jordan. Adding more Indigenous voices to our movement in Parliament will help push important policy priorities forward, engage in new ideas and perspectives, and inspire the next generation of leaders. We are looking for Indigenous peoples to run in your area. So they're looking. They just want a token person of whatever to put in these positions to try and pull in votes. And this is the part that bugs me. It should be the best person for the job.
Right. Well, that's that DEI. That's what DEI is all about. And that's what according to Trump. And that's the thing people are fighting the most to save. Because that is just a cluster screw. And it's like, when do you base it off? Because it's, here, they don't like to say this, but it's racism. If you've got all these people who applied for jobs to be air traffic controllers, and they are trying to sue the government for not hiring them because they're white, that's the same thing. That's judging someone based on the color of their skin, and you can't do that. But with DEI, they got away with it. So now you get to, you have to have, we need a trans person, and now we need a half black, half white person, and now we need it's just,
and that is the issue, because there's a lot of competent and qualified people across all nationalities and races, and whatever your gender identification, whatever you want to identify as. I mean, we can find competent and qualified people virtually anywhere. And I think your point to the reverse racism part is, I get it, but I also look at it. I saw this video once. It was really interesting, and it was a bunch of men lined up of all different colors. It was like a couple Asian guys, couple white guys, couple black guys, whole bunch of a mix of people. And they did this thing where they would tell you to take a step forward if you met part of the criteria. And it was interesting. Like, did you grow up in a two-parent household? Were you able to get a proper education? Did you always have good meals? Did your parents have jobs? Were you, well cared for? Like, did you place all kinds of things? And when they did this, and then at the end of this question period to get people to step forward, they said, okay, now turn around. And they turned around, and all of the black guys were still on like the first or second line. Wow. Like it is tough, I think, for people of, certain cultures and backgrounds. I spent 10 years policing in Scarborough, one of the worst areas in Canada. It was incredibly violent. I will tell you, in these social housing projects, it's like prison, right? Like in prison, if you want to become a good criminal, Rick, you go to prison, because you're going to surround yourself with good criminals. And unfortunately, in these housing projects, as you're seeing a lot of people with criminal records, you're seeing a lot of single home families, predominantly women. And it's these young men ended up hanging out with other young men, and young men, when they form a group and they have no guidance, they get in trouble. And so it's like, I totally see your point, but I think I think there's a little bit more complexity to that one. And this is the liberal in me coming out.
Yeah. And that's fine. No, I do agree with you. I think that there are some disparities with, I still, when I lived in Oregon, it's like I had a lot of people in the Latino community that were friends of mine. And I'd still hear people, and they would treat them as though they all worked in the fields, which there's nothing wrong with working in the fields. But, when you're when you're a business owner and you happen to be Guatemalan and somebody's treating you like you're, somebody who is just got off the train, that's a little degrading. And those are white people treating them that way. Did you see a question?
Travis has made a really good. So he said, I know several blacks that have it much better than poor whites, and blacks only 13% of the population. Yes. Yeah, I know many people of all different ethnicities and backgrounds that are very well off. The point I'm trying to make is where the DIE or the affirmative action programs, the problem with those programs is we're looking at it from the wrong perspective. We're looking at it from an equal outcome perspective. We should be looking at it from equal opportunity. Two different things. And this is
I agree 100%.
One of the polarizing things that's happened in Canadian politics is our prime minister, through his, that champagne socialistic mentality, thinking, oh, well, I'm white and privileged and I kind of feel bad, so therefore everybody should be the same as me. Give. That never works. It's never worked throughout history. I support wholeheartedly equal opportunity.
Right.
We should have the right to be able to put, a roof over our heads, earn a decent living, get an education. We should be able to have these things, but you still have to work for them. Just because, there's that opportunity, there's still that requirement to actually physically do something and want to do something. Where we've gone wrong is we're the equal outcome. We're just going to give everybody
everybody gets, they all deserve this, when it's like, no, if you don't work hard, you don't. If Jordan works really hard at his job and Rick Dancer doesn't work very hard at his job, I don't deserve to have the same outcomes as you. And that's what we've created. And I think the pandemic made it even worse, because then you got a lot of people that we paid them in America. We paid them not to work. So then all of a sudden you got these people now, and I'm going, how do you live off that? You know what I mean? How can you do that? Hey, Jordan, I have to wrap this up under an hour or I can't put it on Instagram. It's their rules.
We have 3 minutes.
This has been super fun. I would love to do it again.
I can keep going too. I just I have a million things to say. So another time, my friend.
Keep in touch with me, and if something comes up and you're going, I think I don't feel like it's, I'm providing a show to Rick. Call me, let me know. Say, Rick, I think I got something we could talk about, because I'd love to have you back on.
I think about opportunities, how to capitalize on an opportunity and make a better life for yourself. I coach people on this. That could be a great conversation.
That would be really fun. I'll just ask the questions and you give out the facts.
We can do
and besides, since we are now brothers and we become one country, you and I are already one step closer. And who knows, we might just take over the 51st state, and maybe we'll make a 52nd, and just call it the McGregor Dancer. I don't know. We can do anything we want. We don't have Trudeau anymore. We got rid of Biden and Trudeau. Now the world's our oyster.
The world's our oyster. Yeah, I love it. All right, my friend.
Okay, buddy, I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
All
right. See you later. So again, you guys, that's Jordan McGregor. Just met him online, saw him talking about some stuff. But what a great perspective for us as Americans, instead of listening to all the sound bites on the news, to actually hear from an actual Canadian and get it. And he's obviously, well versed in all this, and he loves politics and likes listening to it. So we just benefited from his knowledge and experience. So I'm going to post this. Do you guys also remember my Truth About Timber Grizzly Bear Part 2 series is going to start airing tonight. You'll see it all throughout the couple of days. If you share any of this stuff, that's really helpful for us. The bear story, what's so cool about it is this is using the logging industry to come in and create actual habitat by thinning trees. So they're cutting the trees, but they're not calling it logging. It's called adaptive management. And then timber loggers become a habitat restoration specialist rather than loggers. So it's all about how you call it. It's a really cool program because they're doing a really neat experiment here in Montana, but we'll show you that on that story. All right. Have a good time. Share this on your page. I will see you tomorrow. Good night.